Hi, everyone. We are back with another episode of The Janelle Show. And guys, I am so excited to introduce you guys to Ashika Abraham. She is the founder of Mama Mia. She is committed to helping busy moms thrive rather than just survive every day. The app was born for out of her constantly growing personal challenge to find a work-life balance as she transitioned from a successful working woman to a mother. What began as an organic 1,000+ mom-focused Facebook group is today an Apple recognized iOS and almost Android mom planner app used by moms across almost 86 countries around the world. She is also the mom of two wonderful children, aged 3 and 7 years old. In addition to mothering and work, she wakes up at 4 a.m. to make time for her daily yoga and meditation practice, plays basketball and football with a semi-professional group, and is also working on an innovative habitat conservation and wildlife rescue project. Oh my gosh, Ashika, thank you for being here. How do you have time for all of this?
Thank you so much for having me, Janelle. I literally make space for it in my life. I think I'm extremely intentional about what matters to me. And then I think that's the first step, right? Like I start with thinking about what is it that really matters to me. And when I say me, it's the mother in me. It's the little girl in me who had her own big dreams before I became a mother. And it's that, that woman that continues to grow and evolve in those ideas. And so I think I'm very intentional, or I've become very intentional about the things that really matter to me. And then I start putting them down. And I think sometimes bringing that intentionality, you're able to find spaces in your life for it. Most often we just land up living on autopilot. So when we ask ourselves those questions, that we then recognize what's important, and then we find spaces for it. If we are able to organize and schedule and plan our lives well, we can actually make space for, I really believe we can make space for everything that matters to us.
I think it comes to breaking down and taking time to get to know ourselves, because we say, oh, we're a mother, we're a wife, we're a partner, we're a sister, daughter, but who are we really, right? Did you have something that made you just stop and realize that you were running on autopilot? Was there something that did that for you?
So I think I've probably always been that kid who's been trying to separate myself and always asking myself all these questions. But I think when I became a mom, I found it was the first time, right? When I had my first daughter, I realized it was very fulfilling. I was filled with a lot more love and purpose, but I really felt like I was losing touch with the little girl that I used to be, with the young woman with big dreams, the person who could travel all over the world. And then I was like, who am I becoming? I love the new roles that are coming into my life, but I don't want to lose touch with who I always wanted to be and who I continue to want to be as I grow. And I think that transition from woman to mother really, really changed that for me and opened up these ideas of, I started looking at my life as all the different hats that I wear, right? So I wear the hat of a mother, I wear the hat of an entrepreneur, of a wife, of a sister, of a daughter, of a friend. But then who is the person who wears it, right? I think I started seeing myself separate to all the hats I wear. And I think that was an eye-opening moment for me. I realized I'm doing all of this for my kids. I'm doing all of this for my family, for my partners, for everybody else in my life. And then I was like, I'm doing this for and then I think when I started breaking it up into who is me, me is my mind, me is my body, me is my soul, right? Within that, there are different things I do. I exercise for my body, or I eat healthy for my body, but I learn new things constantly and I upskill for my mind. But for my soul, I also feel like I need to do things. So I think by looking at my life by these different hats and figuring out what really matters to me, I started, I think, recognizing the dreams that were really important to me, and as a result, finding a lot of space to do those things now.
I love that. I think that if I'm putting myself in my listeners' shoes, they would ask, well, how do I do this? Because I'm having to make the lunch. I'm having to do the teacher meetings. I'm having to do the homework with the kids. I'm having to cook dinner. How do I find time to figure out who I am again?
So this is actually really what Mama Mia is about, and it's why we started Mama Mia. It is, I feel like I've been doing this for my friends and my colleagues and pretty much everybody who asks me half a question of how do I do life differently? How do you make time for all the things you do? Mama Mia is really just that. It is that rule that I feel like I have built for everybody who asks me, how do you do it? Because I feel like all of us live very different realities, right? Some
Mhm.
people, there are single moms, there are moms in different countries. We all have different levels of villages to support us. So each of our realities are so unique. I feel like the idea of Mamma Mia is, how do you bring these philosophies and these concepts into your life? So you set it up, you decide the hats that matter to you. Maybe volunteering matters to somebody, maybe friendship matters to somebody, maybe being a good sister matters to somebody, right? So you decide those hats that really matter to you, and then you start putting down the things that you want to do. So I feel like a big part of it is deciding what you really want and wish to do, and then everything else that you just have to do, right? There's the reality of our lives as moms. I mean, we're constantly juggling, we're stretched for time, we're running nonstop, I think, and it takes so much to keep these hundreds of moving pieces in our lives going. But I think when you bring them together, the problem is our work is all on our Google Calendar, our kids schedules are somewhere are on our fridge calendars, and then our own lives are actually just in our minds. I feel like when you start bringing it together, and then you start finding spaces in between them. We actually even have an entire section on insights where we help you see how are you spending your time, right? So
Mm.
if that really cleans up, because then you realize a lot of the guilt that we feel like as moms of, oh, I'm spending this time doing this, maybe I'm not giving enough to my kids. When I start putting it down, and every time my mom's like, are you sure you're spending enough time with your children? I send her a screenshot and I say, Mom, no matter what I do, I still land up like, that's my biggest hat. That's the hat that takes the most of my time and my energy, right? Like a big part of it is time. But I think it's equally important to look at our lives by measuring them by the amount of energy we have. What are the things that really matter? Like when I walk, so in Mamma Mia, we have this idea of check off things as you go through them, right? And as you put them down and check it off, we'll show you how you're spending your time. But then start figuring out what is the stuff that really matters. I don't think we can do everything, but we can do everything that matters to us. So I feel like if you put down everything you need to do, put it down everything you wish to do, and put them all side by side, you start finding a lot more space. And then when you start prioritizing the things that really matter to you, that could be a meeting at work, that could be going for a walk with your partner after dinner, that could be just sitting down with no devices and just being fully present with your children, right? Each of those things really matter to us. It's not just about an urgency. Like, I think we tend to prioritize on urgency, but we should be prioritizing our lives on what really matters to me, right? And that's so different for each mother. So Mamma Mia is really that space where you go and put your life in, make it your unique reality, and then through that we help you find that space. We remind you that you haven't done anything for yourself the whole of last week. Or maybe when you're, when I'm struggling with my partner or with my husband, sometimes I look at Mamma Mia and I'm like, whoa, I have not spent time with him in the last 2 weeks. It says these are the hats that you haven't spent time with, and then automatically it brings that intentionality to how things trend, I think, in our lives, right? The more energy and time we put into them, obviously the more we get back from them. So I think that intentionality, I think, is really important, and putting everything down. I feel like our minds are so cluttered otherwise that we don't have the time to think about these things, because it feels like we just have 100 things that we need to get done, that we need to get to be remember to remind ourselves or remind other people about that mental load that we talk about as moms.
Mhm.
That's one of the strongest things I think Mamma Mia helps you do. It helps you manage your time, it helps you manage your mental load, and then it constantly reminds you to prioritize your well-being.
I love that. I tell my clients all the time about managing their expectations, right? So all of this that you're saying is about managing their expectations. What are you going to get out of life? And how you expect to get at that is going to keep you balanced, right? So what I would like to know about, you mentioned something about your mom and you sent her the screenshot, and I would love to talk about mom guilt, because so many of us deal with having that mom guilt, like, oh, I'm not spending enough time with the kids. Oh, they're not going to the best school. They're not as smart as I want them to be, whatever it is. I love how you sent her that screenshot and was like, this is a rebuttal, because look, I know I'm doing great as a mom. So how do you manage your mom guilt? Because I know that's something that most of us deal with.
So I think a big part of that is recognizing the amount of time I am actually spending with my children. And one way of doing that is I feel like it's the way that it's what we put into our calendars, right? We tend to put in all the meetings we have and the things we need to do and the classes we go for, but we don't put in, or we don't recognize, I mean, not even into our calendars, but we don't recognize the amount of our time and energy that we are putting into our children. And when you start putting it down and you see it vis-a-vis everything else that you're doing in your life, I think that's one big part of the guilt that gets removed, is when you realize you still are giving them so much of who you are and so much of the energy you bring into your every single day and every single year of your life, right? So I think that's a big piece of it. Another one that I really lean on is, I don't know if you've heard of Khalil Gibran, the poet. He's written the most beautiful poem about children, and it says, it's this idea of your children are not your children, they are the sons and daughters of life's longing for itself. They come through you, but not from you. And though they are with you, they belong not to you. You may give
Yes.
them your love, but not your thoughts, for they have their own thoughts. And it's this really beautiful poem about how we bring our children into the world and we can give them as much of ourselves as we can. But their lives belong to them and our lives still belong to us. At the end of the day, we can give them everything we can, and we can only give them when we are full ourselves, right? I think as we're constantly scraping from the bottom of the cup, we're never able to give them from a good space. So I feel like quantity over quality is a big discussion I think people have today about time. But to me, being mindful with my children and being fully there when I'm with them and being fully present for 3 hours is far more valuable than spending 8 hours with them and actually not being there entirely, because I'd rather be somewhere else, or my mind is somewhere, or I'm scrolling on my phone while I'm sitting with them. So I feel like that intentionality when you're with them, and the little bit of recognition that they are separate people and we give our best, but they are not entirely, I don't want to say they're not entirely our responsibility, but they have come to live their lives and we still have a responsibility to live fully and live fully our own lives, right? And to live our own best life as well, because they will come through us, they will grow up, they will leave our homes, and we need to still make sure that I think we can appreciate them most when we don't put that pressure or that burden on them that we've given our lives for them, right? We give it because we love to give it, we give it because it fulfills us to give it. But I think if you give everything, then you tend to hold on to a little bit of bitterness and a little bit of resentment. And then that turns the guilt. All of these feelings kind of muddle up in between. So that's, I think those are probably the three main ways that I think I deal with mom guilt.
No, I love that. That's perfect. I even would like to throw in that you mentioned 3 hours of just completely focused time. Most of us don't have that time. So just even doing 15 minutes of, and then build up as you can as you go. But even I spend time with my son, and he was showing me his new toy that he wanted on the computer. And just that 5 minutes of me paying attention and knowing what it was that he was talking about, he was so happy this morning. He was like, remember last night we talked about this toy, da 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 da. And I was like, yep, I remember, guy. Yep. Because he loved that I gave him that time.
Actually, so let me clarify. When I say that 3 hours, what I'm saying is it's in my day altogether. If I include the time I'm spending in the morning getting them ready, the time I'm spending in the car dropping them wherever they need to go, and the time that I take to put them to bed or have dinner with them, it's those small windows. When they add up, they turn out to be a decent amount. But another interesting thing that someone told me once, which I've started doing, I've actually put it into my calendar, where you spend 5 or 10 minutes with each child, where you are entirely doing what they want to do, right? So you just completely put yourselves into their shoes and you listen to their stories, and you're not trying to teach them or mother them or educate them or, give them your value systems. You're just playing their game at their level. And I feel like that fills their cup so much in so little time. And it's only 10 minutes of, maybe a slightly painful game. Both sides know there's only 10 minutes. So you're all in that time. And I feel like it makes a huge difference to the kids, and you also walk away feeling like you really gave that time to them, even though there's such small windows. And that's what I think the key is. We don't need to do huge things. We need to do small, everyday, sustainable, consistent things. And I think that's what really pays off.
I love that. I love that. There's a movie that we watch. It's called Yes Day. and you have to do whatever the kids say the whole day. You have to say yes. And my son loves that concept. He's like, can I get a yes day?
I'm gonna try that. That
Yeah,
sounds
you give them like a budget of like $100 for the day, but in this $100, we have to do everything that you want to do, but it has to fit in that $100 for the day. So go to the movies, go skate, whatever it is.
wow.
Having a complete day of yes. It's a movie on Netflix, and he just absolutely loved it. So, yeah.
I'm gonna try this. It's a great idea.
I would love to transition and flip to now entrepreneurship, because you're an entrepreneur, you're a mom, you're juggling, you're doing all these things. So I would love to talk about the entrepreneurship side of you and how you manage everything that you're doing, and then you're still innovative, because this app is to me, very innovative.
So yeah, entrepreneurship happened to me. I think it was never really a plan that I wanted to be. I think I was working in Ernst & Young and finance, and then in Formula One and a lot of sports marketing. And then I think when I made that transition and I became a mom, I felt like, wow. I mean, the beginning, you're like, how hard can this be? Everybody's a mother. I mean, it'll move on like everything else. I mean, there are generations of mothers. How hard can it be? But I realized, once the sleeplessness and the breastfeeding and all of the initial things that I think the advice they give you in the beginning is this too shall pass, this too shall pass. So I was like, okay, like year 1, year 2, a lot of it did pass. But the one thing I felt like never changed and just kept growing and growing was my management of my time and my mind space and my energy. Those were the 3 things that I realized got harder and more challenging. And I realized it was across the board. Every single mother I met, working or stay at home, had the same struggle. And as your kids get older, that challenge actually becomes a little bit more complex as well, right? So I think I really started Mamma Mia. I spent 2 years talking to hundreds of mothers around the world, understanding like what was their greatest challenge, how did they solve for it. We actually started by talking to women in their 50s and 60s who had kind of been there, done that, and asked them like, what would you have done differently? What do you feel like you did in motherhood? How did you land up at the end having a career that felt fulfilling? That felt fulfilling. How did you manage to have really good relationships with your adult children? Because that's finally what we're all also hoping for, right? You want to be able to sit across a table and have a great relationship with your kids when they grow up. The same with your friends, with your partner, with whoever it is in your life. And we got a lot of ideas and feedback and insights on how they did their lives really well. And then I think so we built the app literally around these philosophies and figured, how do we bring this advice into the daily lives of moms who are at the same stage as me, where we're kind of in the early years of motherhood and we don't want to have to go back and then, can we learn from the mistakes and the insights of those who've gone ahead of us? So we spent the first couple of years just talking to mothers across the world, understanding the struggle, understanding what it was that they needed most. And then a lot of research into productivity and well-being and habit forming and what are the things that will actually bring it into your daily life. So I think Mamma Mia was really born of a personal need that was so strong. And then I realized, hey, it's not just me who has this problem. It seems to be such a common problem. And I think in the introduction, you said 86 countries. Today, we're in 103 countries, right? Just because this problem is so universal. It's amazing that you're sitting in Atlanta, I'm sitting in India. We have moms in Africa, in Asia, in Switzerland, in Russia, in China. Everywhere, moms are going through the same struggle for time and energy. And so I think for me, I feel like one of the strongest things I've realized about entrepreneurship is it's a very challenging journey, but it's so deeply fulfilling. If you do something that you really believe in and you really enjoy doing, I feel like it makes the challenging parts far more inspiring and more, I think it changes the difficulty into more of a challenge. You realize you're growing through the experience. So I feel like when I spend my time at work every day, I love solving the problem because I know to me, I think the world would be a way better place if mothers were fulfilled. If there were more fulfilled mothers in the world, I think a lot of the world's problems would be solved. I feel like we'd bring up a generation of fulfilled, happy people. And that's really what the world needs most, I think. So to me, I'm so committed to solving that problem for a group of people that I think are the most important people on the planet. And that, I think, no matter how difficult it gets, like today was a really traumatic day at work for an entrepreneur. But I feel like I can pull through those because I'll be like, tomorrow morning, I'm going to go straight back into that problem and solve it because it means so much to me.
Yes.
And also, so I feel like you must love the consumer you're trying to solve for. You must deeply believe in the problem you're trying to solve. And I feel like if you can grow with the problem, with the solution, I think it's a winner, because then you're kind of, while I'm learning about how to do this better for other moms, I'm constantly learning about how to live my best life, right?
Right.
I'm constantly applying those ideas into my life. And that's how I'm able to make time for all of these things that matter to me, because we pretty much try out everything on ourselves before we even release a feature on anybody else, right? We make sure it works. We make sure there's no backfiring. We try it out on our friends and our family first. And so I feel like, yeah, those are probably the top 3 elements. Like, find a user group that you really care about solving for, find a problem that you feel like no matter what, you're going to get to the bottom of it and solve it, and find something that gives you deep fulfillment and growth on that journey. I feel like if you have those 3 elements, no matter how hard it gets, entrepreneurship is finally about surviving, right? Can you keep going day to day? And the longer you can hang in there and be committed to solving that problem, success is inevitable. I think
I love that. No, I was going to ask you for advice from a budding entrepreneur, but I think that's it. I appreciate that. That's wonderful. I never thought about your user group. Of course, we talk about target audience all the time, but really loving the people that you serve. Like, I really love the people that I serve. I can see how the work that I do makes a difference for them. So I love that. Thank you. My next question for you is about, podcast is about creating the life of your dreams, right? So I would love to hear about the life that you've created, because obviously it's the life of your dreams, and how you kind of got to that point. We've heard a lot of this story, but how, when you were at one point in your life, it was really not where you wanted to be, and now you're just moving and shaking and you're just doing things. How was that transition for you?
So I did have a really rough period. I struggled with very bad prenatal and postnatal depression, borderline suicidal. It was very traumatic. And I think at that point, I realized how important it was that I did understand who I was, that I did take time out, no matter how crazy things were around me. If I could not take that time out for myself every day and make time, even if it's like 10 or 15 minutes a day, I needed to find that time for myself, because I realized when you don't do it for extended periods of time, things can blow up, and then the work you need to do to pull it back together is 100x what you can do at 10 minutes a day, right?
Right.
So I feel like that is really, really important to me. I think carving out a little bit of, I think self-care gets rolled up in, massages and pedicures and spas. And I think it's so much more than that, right? It's tending to your mental health, it's tending to your physical health, it's tending to the things that matter to your soul. I feel like if you can spend 10 or 15 minutes every day doing that, that's critical. To me, living that best life became so important when I felt like I didn't want to live at all, right? Like, that transition was critical in me realizing, what does it mean to live my best life, right? And I think to me, it really meant that I need to live fully. I need to live each of my roles to the best of my ability. I need to live a life of meaning and purpose and fulfillment. And I think that's something that I've really structured into my life. So I wake up at like a slightly unearthly hour at about 4:30 in the morning.
Oh, I'm at 5:30. I haven't got to 4:30 yet.
But I go to bed at 8:30. I pass out with the kids, so I get a good solid 8 hours of sleep. At bedtime, I'm normally half out, knocked out myself. And then I do yoga. And for me, it's been yoga. I think for different people, it can be running, it can be reading a book, it can be meditating, it can be whatever, going for a walk with your dog. I feel like I spend that first hour. I think post the depression, I still realized I can start my day when I open my eyes. I feel like a 2 on 10. So I have simple things that I put into my calendar. Like, the first thing I open in the morning is this gratitude for what is, right? I stop and I think to myself, oh my God, today life is, I have the basics, the most important things in my life. Those foundational pieces are there. And I remind myself to be grateful for it. Then I do this whole warm water, honey thing while I do some learning and journaling and stuff. Then I go into my yoga and meditation. By the end of it, that 2 on 10 becomes like a 10 on, or a 8 to 11 on 10, I think. And when I then greet my day and my work and my family and my kids, I'm in such a better place to give of myself to people. And then I feel like one part of it is the daily routines. I do believe I'm living my best life really because I'm today living all of the hats. I put down all the hats that really matter to me, right? I love playing sport. So now it's not something I can do every day. I just don't have the time and the space
Right.
at this point in my life. But I've scheduled every Friday morning, I play basketball or football with my girlfriends. It's something that
Mm.
I get the high for my body and my mind, but I also get to spend time with, the women I love who really like, lift you up and energize you. I think that's critical for us as mothers, is to find time for your girlfriends and the women in our lives that really, really lift our energy up. So I feel like I get that once a week as well. And then I realized like conservation is really important to me, right? Like I feel like as moms, again, it's a topic that you want to leave your children some kind of a planet. I feel like we're going to have a lot of hard questions as they get older about why we didn't do more when we could have and when we knew more.
Yeah.
So I think when I started realizing that, I just put a hat in Mamma Mia saying conservation, the planet really matters to me. And I started putting down ideas. I started putting down, different events, something I should read about. And a year and a half later, that's become a full-fledged conservation project where we're working on a huge, acreage of property where we're doing, it's a fragile ecosystem. We're working on wildlife conservation and rescue and rehabilitation of animals in distress. And it's all takes tiny, tiny amounts out of me. I don't do it every day. I do it once a week or twice a week. But once a week or twice a week over the period of a year has really, really given me a solid project. So I feel like it's really being intentional about what it is that really matters to you, and then in tiny, tiny slices, start bringing it into your life. I think I really feel like I'm living that best life because I'm finding ways to bring in the things that really matter to me, and not what society tells me matters, not what my kids tell me matters, but what really matters to me. Right? I think that intentionality is critical.
I absolutely love that. That's beautiful. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. My final question is, I'm a big book reader. I read several books a year. So I wanted to get a book from you, a book that has changed your life, a book that you would suggest that the audience listen to. What book would you love to share with us?
Without a doubt, it's called Surrender Experiment. It's by Michael Singer. That book has changed my life. I think I bought about 45 copies after that. And every time somebody asks me this question, I'm going to take your address and send it to you, Janelle. It's such a life-changing book. It's a
Really?
liberating philosophy about surrendering a little bit, right? So obviously, if you'd imagine, I'm a bit of a control freak if I'm sitting here and planning and scheduling all of this amount.
You and me both.
Some part of that is survival really for us. But I
Yeah.
think the surrender experiment philosophy is so liberating. It teaches you about letting go, going with the flow of life, accepting the pulls and the turns and the switches that sometimes feel so difficult and disheartening, and recognizing, and I think we all know this, right? Like in retrospect, things make a lot of sense. Sometimes it's like going with the current, like when you're in the river, right? You can fight and fight and fight the current, or you can kind of release and recognize that life is taking you on a certain journey, and you can fight it as much as you want, or you can release a little bit, ease and go into a little bit more ease. So you're going to have those same experiences, but can you experience them with a little bit more ease rather than so much struggle and challenge through it? And I feel like for entrepreneurship, for motherhood, and for life, I think it's a critical thing, right? Like nothing goes exactly the way we plan. So can we have loose, flexible plans that move in the direction of what we want, and then let life unfold? And can we have, it's liberating, and it's empowering at the same time. It's a really fulfilling way of looking at life. So The Surrender Experiment by Michael Singer.
Okay, perfect. I've got it noted here. This has been fabulous. Thank you so much, Ashika. Where can people get in touch with you? Where can they find out about you? Please give us all the information.
Okay, so Mamma Mia is on Instagram. I think that's probably the best way to follow us. Use the app though. I'm not promoting it as an entrepreneur. I'm recommending it as a mom who really cares about other moms finding that space for themselves every day. Follow us on I think on LinkedIn or on Instagram or even on Facebook. MAMMAMIYA. That's Mamma Mia.
Perfect. Thank you so much. All of those links are going to be down in the show notes below. Guys, please click, please follow, please download this app. I'm going immediately to download it because all of us need the work-life balance that she is describing. Ashika, thank you so much for being here with us today.
Thank you so much. It was entirely my pleasure.
Thank you. And you guys have been listening to the Janelle Show. Enjoy your lives, live your life to the fullest, and we will see you back here again next Sunday at 10 a.m.